we've become like a price-driven industry, like save $400. I really believe there's going to be a shift towards trust, maybe back towards that, to what the industry has been is trust versus price. Price is always going to matter, don't get me wrong, but this idea of having somebody that is with you through your entire life cycle and that has built up this relationship in a way that you feel good about, that's a big shift. And I do think that that's going to happen. I'm Sean Burgess with Lemonade, and this is the Future of Insurance.
This episode is brought to you by and is part of the Future of Insurance Thought Leadership Series. The Future of Insurance is the place to get thoughts and examples of how we as an industry can move forward and do better, because the work we do is important. We put lives back together and we stop risk from standing in the way of people going after their dreams. When we feel constrained, it's helpful to learn from the examples of others facing the same barriers as they make change to do better. The Future of Insurance provides examples and guidance on how you can bring the evolution of insurance into your world. Learn more and get books, thought leadership articles, podcasts, and more at future-of-insurance.com.
Sean, it's great to sit down with you and talk about your journey, the big transition, and what you guys are building at Lemonade.
Yeah, Brian, it's great to be here. It's been a while since we've talked, back when your first book, I think it was. So we talked a little bit around innovation when I was at USAA. But yeah, super excited to be here to talk to you, and excited about my new journey at Lemonade. As you can tell, it's all dressed in pink, ready to roll.
Yes, yeah, you're properly branded. All good. The best I could do is red, but it's got white in it. So I figured on average that's more pinkish, but not quite the magenta.
You're on your way. You're on your way there.
I'm working on it. And I'm not drinking iced tea or anything. I'm not having lemonade either, but at least like I'm not working against it. I am, just like at the basic for people who don't know you, although I'm sure most people in the industry do and would have seen the news about your move. But who are you and what do you do?
Who am I? I've been trying to answer that question for years. No, Sean Burgess, I'm Chief Claims Officer here at Lemonade. Came over to Lemonade in December. Have been in the industry for almost 30 years, 28 to be exact. And previously that was all with USAA. So I moved over from USAA to Lemonade in December. Listen, when I got into the insurance business, like most people, it wasn't specifically to be in a certain part of it. It was to do good and to do something I could get behind. And certainly I found a company that I could do that with for a long period of time. I love insurance, and I'm happy to bring that love over to Lemonade.
And you were part of it was gigantic, but relatively speaking, a pretty fast growing insurance company. I'm a member. I was USAA insured. We've talked about that. I'm not anymore, but lots of love for them. But from when I first signed on as a member to where they're at today, USAA has grown dramatically as well. So it's not a startup, but also fast growing, a lot of change, a lot of technology being pushed. In your old world as well.
Oh yeah, I mean, listen, I was the Chief Claims Officer there as well, and the last 7 years I was there. The company doubled in size. I mean, that's crazy, right? To think of a 100-year-old company that can do that. So like you, have a ton of respect for USAA, and will always have a special place in my heart personally. But yeah, the growth and being able to scale is something that, by the way, gets me really excited. Like that's, one of the things I see in Lemonade, and one of the things that excited me just about the InsurTech space is taking the technology, taking this idea and thought from people that don't have preconceived notions of what it should be, and matching that up with the ability to scale, and scale gracefully, and scale profitably, and scale with excellent service. All those things are what are super exciting about Lemonade as well.
Well, so talk to me about that. Is what you like? You had the dream job, for any claims professionals, like you're at this really well-respected carrier, you're at the top of the claims org. What is it that draws you out of that? So what brought you into Lemonade, and what is it that you're trying to do?
Yeah, certainly, like most people in the business, I follow the industry really, really close. So I knew about Lemonade, but when I started to really look under the covers a little bit and figure out what they were about, and it was this idea that is true today, but how they started, of growing with customers, right? Not interjecting at some point within the process, but growing, right? And yet you saw how Lemonade started, right? With renter's insurance, and then now we have pet insurance, and you're kind of growing into the things of home and car, which are now, we could talk about, but obviously those are growing parts of the business. Is a different way to do it. So that type of growth that I saw as different, and then most of the industry really got me excited. And then this other idea of winning with tech, right? Having the technology to do things that the industry has never seen before.
Yeah.
I think those two things combine. And then, Brian, listen, it goes without saying, right? The people here are amazing. And they really have a vision and a strategy that they're executing to. So I think those things combined of being a point in my career where, hey, let's take a leap and let's do something that is the same, because like I said, I love insurance, but also has a much different aspect to it.
Yeah. I want to dig into the tech piece of that, because tech's something it's always been difficult for our industry. It's gotten a lot more democratized, and with moving to the cloud and API based tools that, even if you've got an old school legacy like mainframe solution, you can actually still do a lot of really flexible things on top of that. So on the one hand, we've got an industry that, struggled with this, but now there are ways for us to get moving on a number of fronts faster. And so for someone from the outside, it's like, well, I see the InsurTech's doing these things, but why couldn't we do this? Or, we can do this because we've got all this stuff at our disposal. But then you get inside of an InsurTech. And, I was talking to Rick McCaffrey last season, and he was like, I understood. It's like to a new parent, people like the sleep deprivation. You're like, oh, I understand what that'll be like. I'll be tired. And then you live through it. And it's like, no, I didn't understand it. Sort of felt like that with Rick. Is like, once I got in, I was like, no, this is completely different. The way they engage with tech, the way they deliver it, the skill of the developers, all that kind of stuff, the engineers, it's not the same. Is that sort of what you've experienced? That like, yes, there's all kinds of tools that anyone in the industry has access to, but you come inside and it's like, you have a whole different level of understanding of what being kind of tech forward or tech first or tech from your core really means.
Yeah. By the way, I saw that the podcast. I do watch the podcast
Nice
with Rick, with Rick, and he was in. There's a couple things that I agree with him on that. I remember the conversation that he had around, just the level of talent around your engineers, and I would say the product, the creative side of product that comes from people, back to that, that idea of no preconceived notions, but like a skill set that comes from tech. You name the company, Spotify, Netflix, you could go on and on. The people in Tel Aviv that do the majority of that work with Lemonade, and we also have others, so I don't want to leave anything out, but I think they're geniuses. Like the things that they do are incredible. And then the basis of how the company was set up to really be vertically driven, right? So homegrown, built from scratch, like everything is built from scratch, which has huge pluses. And don't get me wrong, it's not like everything is rosy, right? There's also huge challenges. And to your point, like traditional carriers or new carriers or medium-sized carriers, you name the market, it's becoming more and more democratized, as you said, and you can do it. I think the fact that you start from scratch, right, does have a unique advantage, and that's what I've seen here. And then having people that are these geniuses, as I call them, and I don't say that lightly, and have them thinking about insurance. It is again, because I was homegrown, right, from not in the InsurTech space. It's pretty exciting, and I think that staying on that journey is going to be something that's crucial to Lemonade.
There's a counterbalance to this that I want to get your opinion on too, and I expect in a good way that you'll be biased on this, but let's talk about it. Next was another company that was in one of my books, and they made a very conscious decision to not exclude insurance people, but not to put insurance people in the key insurance roles like product managers of their GL product or workers' comp or whatever. They were intentionally bringing in non-insurance people everywhere, and then they had insurance advisors and worked with Parent Knight or whoever to get that expertise where they needed it. As you look as tech-centered outsider kind of mindset, you get to a point where you do start bringing in insurance people for roles like yours. what happens there? And you're sort of, and this is why I think you're biased, because you're one of the people who came in. So, but, and Rick would be too, because he was the old school insurance person who came into, the tech first company that was Hippo. What's your view on that in terms of being able to respect what you need from that like insurance talent, but also not have it put the historic kind of, the bounds of what's possible. And, we can't do this because of this constraint or that, and all the things that people bemoan about us, like old school insurance folk. How do you balance both of those? Like having the expertise, but also still the freedom to rethink, what could be done and how we go about it.
Yeah, I think first of all, I think it's not easy. Like I will tell you that, right? But I think it takes a real open mindset, and that's easily said, right? Harder to do, because there's a couple things that at play here, right? Is it takes both, right? Like there's some insurance fundamentals, right? Whether it's claim handling, whether it's underwriting, you name the piece, that has to be in place, right? And you need expertise. And I can tell you, like on my team, I've got 20 plus years State Farm, 20 plus years Allstate. I've got, I could go on and on with people on my team that understand the business, but at the same time, you have to be completely open to thinking about things in a much different way. And I find that as I've been interviewing, as I've been looking to bring additional people on to Lemonade, because we continue to be a growing company, you really have to find that out to say, can you use that expertise in a way that makes sense in a tech-driven environment? And I think it's something that we're going to continue to see happen. By the way, I think people want to be part of it, but it has to take the right person.
Yeah. I totally agree with you. And yeah, you're not the only insurance person in the whole business. It's not all resting on your shoulders, but it's a tricky thing to navigate. So one of the key timing around you joining is this push into car. And yeah, I get it. Part of that product graduation to start to envelop more of your customers' lives and align to the things that they need. That's a huge build out. Is like, what is it that you're going about as you embark on that? Because obviously it's small right now. It's one state at this point, or maybe there's more. I don't know.
Two,
but it's two. Okay.
But
building out into something that I imagine has no bounds, that it's going to be as national and maybe international at some point as anything else that Lemonade does. So that's a huge build. Is that consuming most of your time, focusing on building the car claims proposition?
Yeah, I would say it's certainly a big part of it, Brian. I mean, building out, that was one of the things that really got me energized when I first came over, was what's happening in car. And so, it's this idea that starting your relationship with a customer with renter's insurance, condo, pet, and home, and then trying to get the car. Again, it's a much different dichotomy of how you're approaching it. But we are seeing some pretty fantastic results already in Illinois. By the way, it's Illinois and Tennessee. And what we're seeing is, a 40% difference in bundling from customers that are in Illinois versus other areas of the where Lemonade is, where we don't offer car yet. So to me, that shows that people want to continue their relationship, and this whole grow with our customers, right? Back to that piece of what Lemonade's really trying to do, because people are doing, even let's just say the InsurTech space, right? People attack it different ways. Some people are trying to be deep experts in one area, right? Where Lemonade's trying to truly grow throughout the life cycle of the customer, and car offers us the ability to do that. The other thing that's really exciting about car, Brian, and hard, by the way, right? As you said, this is a hugely competitive market. It's not easy. Is just this telematics space, right? Which we've been talking about for years. Some people are farther along than others. And like our customers are digital. Right? So the ability to have, 90% around there, like take rates on utilization of telematics, or, digital first notice of loss that comes in either, through the telematics or through the customer being, just the fact that percentage starts with a 9 is pretty fantastic. Right? Yeah.
I suppose 9% would as well, but you're not talking about that. It doesn't.
No, it starts with a 9. It starts with a 9. And so I think, just being able to keep that, that, that digital interaction with our customers. Don't get me wrong, like if we know when to call people, because I believe that good and great digital companies also know when to pick up the phone.
Yeah.
Right. And if you think about the claim space, there is a piece for that. And we have that ability and are doing that today too. But make no mistake, like car is going to stretch us, right? Car is going to stretch us, but it's also going to do something else, Brian, which is really important is, we've been growing in these products that, don't bring in the type of revenue and premium that home and car do. So now, we've seen our in-force premium, grow from 155 million just 24 months ago to 419 million just in our latest quarterly report. You can just think about how car and then our continued expansion of home and what that brings to the revenue stream for Lemonade. That's why I believe the future's bright around car.
Yeah, and the early days sort of swearing off offering an auto insurance product, I was like, it's going to be hard. Not to say you can't, and obviously like Hippo is a pure play on the homeowner side, Kin is, there are players to do that, but to really have that rounded out experience, you have to think about those major assets that people are going to get insured. And the auto insurance space is such a hot, highly advertised and competitive space. To not play in that and expect to grow in the other stuff is going to be tricky. So when that announcement came out and people are like, well, however many years ago they said we'll never do auto, and now they're doing it. And so they're changing their minds. Like, well, you have to be dynamic, you have to shift. And I think you also have to recognize, well, where is the market and how do we evolve in this way that we're talking about? So strategically, it's about that kind of holistic view of the customer, then meeting them at all the places where they need coverage. Is that the driver behind it?
Definitely, right. I mean, looking to be where our customers are. And I would use pet as another good example, right? That wasn't on the original roadmap, right, of Lemonade. But then as you start getting into renters and you start getting into condo and you start realizing, okay, well, if you look at a, phase of life, right, that somebody would go through, right, whether it's renters or condo, and then I'm gonna have a pet, and then I'm gonna move into a home, I'm gonna drive a car, whatever sequence that happens, that's where we're trying to be. So I think car was a natural, even if the original thought was maybe that was, it wasn't a place that we would be. I think adapting and pivoting is still essential in this business, right? Yeah. Even a business that's, such, as traditional and long standing as insurance, you got to know when to pivot. And you also see our purchase of Metro Mile, right? Which is just going to help us accelerate not only the ability to roll out car, but just the data that comes with the telematics space, right? That's the real value to any insurance company, or you could probably go out into other industries, but in this case, like we're talking about insurance, right? I mean, data wins, especially when you put it in the hands of the right people. So car really gives the ability, to do more of that. So you could probably think of that as a factor too, Brian, about why you want to be in this space is you learn so much about what's happening with your customer.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that. And I'm curious about, from a claim standpoint, a lot of times people think telematics and they think it's about marketing, pricing, underwriting. It's a way to get access to customers and price them out. And I still feel like as an industry, we're not really looking at the claims implications of that. Is what if you had all this data, especially as you get into connected cars and you can see everything going on contextually around them. Are you also thinking about that? There's a claims implication for this, and what could we do because we have that telematics data? Or is that like, yes, but we're not ready for that yet?
Oh, definitely thinking about it and taking action on it. I mean, I think, again, the more we can know about what's happened right up front, the faster we can, be identified. So you think about the scenario where our customer Lemonade is used to dealing with us, right? They want to deal with us digitally, right? So it allows us the ability to say, okay, we know an accident has occurred. Let's get you that tow truck. Let's get you to the repair shop. Eventually, when you look at what's happening down the road, which probably is sooner rather than later, is knowing exactly what the repairs need to be, right? Getting parts ordered. So I definitely see it as a huge part of the claim space, because one of the things I've always thought about in my role is, speed and ease. Mm-hmm. Like people don't want to go through a claim, right? If they do, then we've got a special spot for you called SIU,
Right.
right? But that's the rare few, right? People don't want to go through it. So you have to add speed, and using telematics just puts that on steroids
Yeah.
when it comes to a car claim. And then having that ability to actually have the adoption rate and the desire to integrate and interact, I should say, with us that way, that's different, right? And that's something we definitely need to harness, and we will.
Yeah. It is really interesting how like it's just diametrically opposed people are to, I've done like webinars on telematics, and you see in the questions, the comments, like, I am never giving my insurer all that data on how I'm driving. There's other people who are like, I think I'm a good enough driver and I'd like to get better. So here, if it's going to benefit me, you can have all of it. And I find that myself where, maybe it's a couple of years ago, I wasn't for it. And then of course we stopped driving in early days of the lockdowns. I'm like, yeah, let's do the telematics thing and save some money. But now actually I'm thinking about it more holistically, pricing, what kind of guidance could I get that I might be missing something about, how to be safer, but also thinking about the claim side of it. And I think we've talked about being proactive and, when you can't avoid the loss, being more responsive. This is one of those moments where we have a tool to do that. And it's interesting to me to still see people who say all that, but are not for telematics. It's like, well, here's one way to get access to that vision you have.
And I think it happens. You're right. I mean, as far as people's perceptions and how they feel about it, even people that are digital natives or, do most things digitally can have some apprehension around, telematics, but I think that's changing.
Mm-hmm.
It won't change overnight, but it'll change faster than people think. Yeah. And I think when you have this digital savvy consumer, which, we tend to, have a bent towards that at Lemonade, I do think it's an advantage. Now, you have to take advantage of that, right? You have to, really understand who wants it, who doesn't. Again, that's why I say it's not easy, but back to the point, is it on our minds and are we working it? Not just on our minds, from a claims perspective, 100%.
Yeah. I have a lot of other questions I want to ask you, but I'm going to, in the respect of time, I do want to think about the future a little bit. And, you made a big leap in your career. You're at something fast moving and lots to build out. How are you thinking about what's coming and the future? And where do you think, whether that's for personal lines, for Lemonade, for the industry, for claims in particular, I'll let you pick the context, but where do you see things sort of shaping up in the next, the next few years?
Yeah, I think it's going to be one of the first employees that I talked to here at Lemonade when I came in was one of our insurance advocates. We call them advocates, not adjusters here. And she had come from a large carrier, and I asked her, what's the best thing about coming to Lemonade? And she said, my claim is like 70% done by the time I get it, which was like, you think about the AI that we have in place. And the reason I bring that up around the future, because that struck me, right, is like all that work that the insurance industry has traditionally done, that just drives up cost and ultimately expense. I believe that that's going to be removed. We've talked about it for years, and some of it has happened, but I think the ability to take the data, use the AI, and create a really product that is not only touchless, but instant. So, instant replaces touchless, and most people aren't even at touchless yet. Yeah. But I think it does get to instant at some space. The other big shift that I see, Brian, and in the industry is this: we've become like a price get driven industry. Like, save $400, save $500. You turn on your TV, you turn on your radio, you turn on your Netflix, anything. There's advertisements. I really believe there's going to be a shift towards trust, maybe back towards that, to what the industry has been is trust versus price. Listen, price is always going to matter. Don't get me wrong, but this idea of having somebody that is with you through your entire life cycle, and that has built up this relationship in a way that you feel good about, and you actually have this feeling of love for each other. We talk here about being the most loved insurance company on the planet. That's a big shift, and I do think that that's going to happen. So I guess I'll leave it at that for the two things I see kind of happening around the future of insurance.
Can I ask you a follow-up question?
Go for it.
So since you're living in this kind of like bionic adjuster or advocate world that we all talk about is like, well, when we have these tools and our people will be free to, engage in the meatier part of the adjusting process and not the busy work or, whatever the keying and sort of administrative side of it. What is it like for them? Because that's, if you're closer to that future or living in it than many of us in the industry, what does that mean for staff? Because that's the $1 million question, and all the conferences, it was like, when do I lose my job to the AI? You're living at the balance of the two. So what does that look like for your people?
Yeah. So it's definitely not like losing your job, right? This is a combination of AI and humans coming together to provide an amazing world-class experience. So I think and we're not perfect at it yet, Brian, but certainly we're farther along than most because of that homegrown system, right? That really allows the AI and bots to do a lot of the work here. But I think there's always going to be a place for the adjuster. Like I said, good companies know when to pick up the phone, and we do that, right? If your house burns down, we're going to call you, and we're going to be right next to you in a matter of hours. Yeah. But what it does for the advocates and the adjusters inside, it just allows them to do the things that we've talked about for years, right? Yeah. Of being able to connect, right? We measure empathy here from a frontline perspective as robustly as we measure quality of a file. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a shift that, again, we've been talking about in the industry for a while. Yeah. I see it happening here. We're not done, but I certainly see it happening here.
Yeah, that's really good to hear. And it does sound like that advocate that you talked to, it's not like she was asking for it to be 60%, so she had more justification for her existence. It was like, and if it could be 75%, that'd be even better, because it sounds like it's viewed as a positive.
She had the biggest smile on her face. Yeah. Right. Because think about it, as a service representative in any industry, but specifically in claims, like, you want to help people.
Right.
Like, you want to be there to provide that. Certainly the technical expertise is needed, right? But the empathy and the understanding and building relationships, like, that's what human beings are about, right? And honestly, that's what drove me to claims almost 28 years ago, was that connection to people. That's not going away. Yeah. It actually gets better with the AI, right? And the technology to allow more of that. Because again, that story, like, a huge smile on her face as she was telling me. So yeah, I loved hearing that. It was that was my day one at Lemonade, in one of the first people I'd met in the office. And it was a great story that I always remember.
Well, I think that's from a claim standpoint, that's a great place to leave it, is remembering why we got into this work was to help people at the worst moments of their lives, and the reward that you get from doing that. And it sounds like, especially for that advocate, she feels free to be able to focus on that instead of the parts of the job that just keep you from getting to that moment. So maybe it's something we can all strive for. Sean, it's great to sit down with you and hear from you since you made the move, and hear about the things that you're building. And it's just great to get the firsthand perspective from inside Lemonade.
Thanks for having me, Brian. I really appreciate it. Look forward to seeing you at upcoming conferences now that we're out and about.
It's great to sit down with Sean and to hear that firsthand perspective from someone who came from, very much legacy, successful carrier, well-established, growing, but, around for just 100 years, to the InsurTech side, and what it's like to not just view it from the outside, but to get inside and see, is it what the promise is? Is the excitement there? What makes it different? How are they going about things in a different way? And you do pick up, there's some really material things going on there in terms of how they're working day to day, what the people feel like about the work that they're doing, and how they're empowered to do it. This build versus buy discussion, like, obviously they're a build kind of shop that makes sense, being born out of tech and the the capabilities and engineering skills that come with that. But what are you building for, and with what mindset and what freedom and what sense of what you're trying to achieve? So that all really stands out. And that advocate saying like 70% of the claim is done, giving her the space to get into what she really wants to do to help someone get back into it. And that is why we exist. That is why this industry is here, and why, I always used to say to my claims team, like, this is what we signed up for originally, and why we get up in the morning. It's not for that first 70% or whatever it is, the procedural kind of stuff. It's to help people put their lives back together. So always exciting to hear when that's something you can focus on. So very thankful to Sean for sitting down. I said to him after we recorded, like, Lemonade is at every conference. They're talked about everywhere, but they're not usually at the conference with anyone. And I haven't heard a ton from them from the inside. And so getting some time to sit down with Sean and hear firsthand is so valuable. So hopefully you take that in. And, with all of the companies that we bring on the show and that, are out there in the industry, it's really important, regardless of whether they're successful or not, or what you think of them or not, there are things we can learn from them and take inspiration from. And Lemonade's a great example of that. It's one that has been, divisive, with some people who love it and some who don't in the industry and say it's not sustainable, and others who say, just watch and that they're building. And I don't know what's right and what isn't, but what I do know is they have done a number of things that have resonated. They have done a number of things that customers really want. And like Sean said, like, not everything's perfect. There's lots they can do better. And, no doubt they're engaging in that too. But there's something for all of us to take from that. And that's what I would leave you with, is find those points that you can say, well, regardless of anything else I think about them or don't think about them, this seems to be going well. What can I learn from that? How can I bring that into my work? How can I take that inspiration? And maybe that excites me or reminds me why I signed up for this work in the first place. There's a lot of people who are in Sean's shoes that, you started this work decades ago or 20 something years ago, or even 10 years ago. Have you reconnected with that purpose, that reason why you got into it or why you were drawn in? And it's a really important thing to do to keep us focused on that path of helping people put their lives back together, standing by them at those really difficult moments. And, I do like that notion that Sean talked about for Lemonade, of thinking about the entire customer and all of the points in their lives where they need protection and help, and getting to that place of trust and letting trust be the driver of what company they choose to work with. I think that's really something for all of us to take in. So thank you to Sean. Thank you to all of you for tuning in, and I will see you all next time. Take care.